with me, my birth parents were super young, teen parents basically. And, my birth dad is schizophrenic, and, and they were both really incapable of being parents. So our home was basically like a hoarder's home. When I read the police reports from when they first got there, and they had pictures, and there was poopy diapers just piled up in huge piles, and my older siblings were crawling around on the floor, like eating food off the floor, and they were all really skinny and small. And the police found me, I was 3 months old at the time, and they found me in the sink. And I had never been held. My little arms and legs had atrophied into the fetal position, and because I was never held or moved around. And I had a diaper rash, just my whole body covered in rashes and sores for never being cleaned. So that type of experience, to be born into that world and never experience those first crucial moments of love and tenderness from a parent, not being kissed and not being bathed and snuggled and hugged. Those had a profound impact on me. I don't remember that, obviously. But then we kept going back to that same situation. And, my birth dad would kick us, and my brother has a fracture along his skull that when they had x-rays of it, the doctor said they'd only seen that in one other person who'd fallen off a second-story window and onto their head. So there was all these types of abuse happening, and sexual abuse with my birth dad. He was really just, not an okay person that way. And growing up, it caused hypersexuality in me as a teen, not being safe, not being careful. It caused me to have a sense of worth that was not there. When you're treated like that as a kid, it makes you grow up and feel like a nobody, like a nothing. And, through working in therapy, that's where a lot of my eating disorder came from, was that feeling of worthlessness. And, so I wasn't able to actually work on any of those issues until after I got sober. And I had a specialist who worked with me on PTSD, basically, because every time you have a traumatic event happen to you, it's like dropping a mirror, and all those, your brain splits off the memory into different parts, so it can handle it and survive. That's where PTSD comes from, fragmented memories, fragmented emotions, because if your brain were to take that mirror as a whole and try to store it somewhere, well, nobody really knows what happens. We suspect that sometimes that's what happens when people self-destruct, but when your brain splits it makes it easier for you to deal with. So I was able to work through a lot of that stuff, not by revisiting it necessarily, but by being able to do kind of like inner child therapy, subconscious work. So, I never had to go back, I would never want someone who's gone through abuse to think they ever have to go back and face it head on. Sometimes that might work for people. For me, it didn't. So, yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
But I wouldn't have been able to get that therapy if I didn't get sober.